The rain was not just falling. It felt like it was trying to erase the whole mountain. I was knee-deep in a mud trench I had been digging for 4 straight hours. My shovel hit rock, my back burned, and the cold water ran down the neck of my gray t-shirt. I kept going anyway. The drainage pipe in front of me was starting to buckle under the pressure of the storm. If this retaining wall failed before the county inspector came on Tuesday, Councilman Rigg would have exactly what he wanted. He would call the site unsafe, condemn the structure, and take my grandfather's land. It was not just a cabin to me. It was the only thing I had left of my family. I jammed a pry bar behind a sagging timber and pulled with everything I had. Mud sucked at my boots. My hands shook from pure exhaustion. That is when I heard the horn. It was a thin, weak sound, almost lost in the roar of wind and rain. It did not belong up here. Nothing belonged up here except me, the half-built timber frame behind me, and the quiet I had fought so hard to protect. I straightened up, wiped grit and water from my eyes, and climbed out of the trench. My legs felt like they were made of wet cement. I left the tools in the mud and headed for the porch. I grabbed the lantern from the railing and turned it on. The beam cut through the curtain of rain. It landed on a silver sedan sideways on the berm of my service road. The car was nose down in the mud. The front bumper was buried. Steam rose from the grill in soft white bursts. Through the streaked windshield, I could see 2 suitcase handles in the back seat and a tan duffel on the floor. They were not joyriding. They were traveling. I walked toward the car with my shoulders hunched against the sting of the rain. Water ran down my hair and into my eyes. My jeans felt like they weighed 20 extra pounds. The driver's window rolled down 2 inches. I saw a slice of a face. Blonde hair stuck to a wet forehead. Wide blue eyes, bright with panic and a fake smile that did not fool me. "We're stuck," she yelled over the storm. "I can see that," I shouted back. She wore a clear hooded raincoat that clung to her like plastic wrap. Her hands were white on the steering wheel. "Can we come in, just until it stops?" she called. I looked at the sky. The clouds were black and low. The storm was just getting started. Then I looked back toward the cabin I was building. My place. My one-room shell with a wood stove, a rough kitchen, and a loft with no railing yet. "It's not going to stop," I said. The passenger door opened before I could say more. Another woman stepped out. Taller. Older. She wore a clear poncho that whipped around her in the wind. Mud splashed up her boots as she walked around the front of the car. She looked like the driver. Same blonde hair, same bone structure, but where the first one was all nervous energy, this one was calm steel. Her dark eyes were tired, but her chin was up. "We don't need a rescue," she said. Her voice cut cleanly through the storm. "We just need a phone. Our cells have no signal." "Landlines are down," I said. "Lines blew out an hour ago." She stared at me, rain racing down her cheeks. She did not beg. She measured. "We're only staying 1 night," the younger one yelled from the car. "Just until dawn." She shoved her door open and jumped out anyway. Clear hood up now, pulling her rolling suitcase through the mud. She wrestled the tan duffel out and slung it over her shoulder like she had been doing this all her life. I looked back at the older one. I would learn later that her name was Meline and the younger one was Paisley. Right now, all I saw was that Meline was shivering. A fine tremor ran through her frame that she tried to hide. "I have only 1 bed," I said. Meline did not flinch. "The floor is dry, isn't it?" she asked. "Mostly," I said. "Then we'll take it," she answered. 20 minutes later, my quiet cabin felt like a crowded elevator. I had brought their bags in from the car and parked the sedan as far off the road as I could. The storm pounded on the roof. The wood stove threw out heat, but the air still held a damp chill. Paisley walked in circles around the open room. She was 26, full of nervous chatter. She talked about the wedding venue they were supposed to visit 3 towns over, how the GPS had lied, how the storm had come out of nowhere. "This place is rustic," she said, brushing her fingers over a stack of cedar beams I had cut for the future deck. "It's a work site," I said, tossing another log into the stove. "I live here because I am building it." "It's beautiful," Meline said quietly. She stood close to the stove, her back to us. She had taken off the poncho. Under it, she wore a fitted blazer, now damp at the shoulders. It looked like it cost more than my truck. She was not looking at me. She was looking at the mantel joinery. Her gaze followed every notch and angle. "Dovetail notch," she murmured. "Hand-hewn." I stopped with the poker in my hand and studied her. "You're an architect?" I asked. She said. I don't know what I am right now. Just a woman blocking your heat. She stepped aside. As she passed me, the scent of vanilla and rain hit me. It was soft and clean and very female in a room that smelled like sawdust, coffee, and sweat. I'm Cillian, I said, holding out a hand. My palm was rough with calluses from axes and chisels. Her hand was cool and smooth, her grip firm. Meline, she said. This is my sister, Paisley. We really appreciate this. We'll be out of your hair as soon as the sun comes up, Paisley added, dropping into my one old leather armchair like it was hers. Promise. I nodded, but the knot in my stomach tightened. I walked to the window and pulled the curtain back. The rain now slanted sideways. The service road had turned into a brown river. On the small table by the door, a letter lay where I had left it that morning. Notice of intent to condemn. Riggs' last warning. For days to prove the structure safe or lose everything. I let the curtain fall and turned back toward the two women who had just walked into the only thing I had left. I hope you're right, I said. About what? Meline asked. About leaving at dawn, I said. Because if this storm keeps up, nobody is going anywhere. At 8 that night, the power died. The cabin went dark except for the orange glow of the stove. The wind howled against the north wall so hard the timbers vibrated. That is spooky, Paisley whispered. I lit 2 kerosene lamps. Their hiss filled the silence as warm light pushed back the shadows. All right, I said. Sleeping arrangements. I kept my tone practical. Simple. Like this was just another job. There's a mattress in the loft. There's the couch down here. And there's the floor by the stove. We can't take your bed, Meline said right away. We are already imposing. You are taking the bed, I said. Heat rises. The loft is warmest. If it drops below freezing, down here gets cold fast. We can share it, Paisley said. Meline kicks, but I can handle it. I looked at Meline. Her arms were wrapped tight around herself. Her jaw was slack with exhaustion. She leaned on one of the heavy posts like it was the only thing holding her up. I'll take the floor by the stove, I said. I have a sleeping bag. Silly and no, she started. I met her eyes. I don't argue about safety, Meline. Go up. She held my gaze for a long second. Then she nodded once. I watched them climb the ladder. I heard the soft thump of their bags, the low sound of their voices, the rustle of blankets. It felt strangely intimate, knowing 2 strangers were settling in 12 feet above me. For 3 years this cabin had been my fortress, my shield, my place where no one else breathed the same air. I laid my sleeping bag on the hard pine floor by the stove and stared up at the beams I had set with my own hands. Above me, the floorboards creaked. I heard Meline sigh, a long, heavy sound. I closed my eyes, but sleep did not come. Every shift she made, every soft sound, made my skin prickle. The storm outside was beating on my walls. The storm inside my chest was worse. I woke up to the sound of something hitting the house hard. My eyes snapped open. The stove was just a bed of coals now. The lamps were out. The cabin glowed faint orange from the dying fire. Outside, the wind roared against the walls and roof. Then I heard it again. A crack, a crash, and the scrape of something heavy sliding. I was on my feet and in my boots before I was even fully awake. My shoulder hit the door frame as I grabbed my flashlight. Stay up there, I called toward the loft. I was not even sure if they were awake, but I said it anyway. I opened the door and the wind almost ripped it out of my hand. Cold, wet air slapped me in the face. Snow mixed with rain now, thick and heavy. The porch roof had taken a hit. A huge branch from one of the fir trees lay across it, shedding needles and ice. I checked the posts, ran my hand along the beam. The roof held. I turned back toward the open doorway and saw her. Meline stood there, framed by the door, wrapped in one of my flannel shirts she must have found hanging on a peg. She had pulled on a pair of spare thermal leggings from the gear bin. The flannel fell past her hips. Her hair was down, loose and messy from sleep. Her bare feet curled against the cold floor. Is it bad? She yelled over the wind. Structure's fine, I shouted back. Just noise. I stepped inside and forced the door shut against the storm. The latch clicked. The sudden quiet rang in my ears. We stood there in the dim light from the stove, breathing hard. My shirt was soaked. Water ran from my hair down my neck. She was close. Too close. I could see the quick beat of her pulse at her throat. You're soaking wet, she said. I'm waterproof, I answered. She did not smile. Her hand lifted, fingers hovering near my arm like she wanted to touch and was holding back. You built this place to last, she said. I built it to stand, I said. It is the same thing, she replied. She shivered. It was not dramatic, just a small shake that ran through her shoulders. I kept my hands in my pockets. If I took them out, I knew I would reach for her, pull her closer to the stove, wrap my arms around her. That was not the kind of man I was allowed to be with a stranger in my house. Go back to bed, Meline, I said instead. I'll keep an ear on the weather. She looked up at me. There was a question in her eyes I did not want to answer. After a moment, she nodded and turned, climbing the ladder back to the loft. I stayed by the door until I heard her settle. Her breathing slowed. The house creaked. The storm raged. Solitude had been my armor for years. Now it felt like something I had already lost. Morning brought light, but it did not bring comfort. The rain had stopped, but the damage was clear as soon as I stepped outside. The service road was gone in 3 different spots. Big sections had washed out, leaving deep cuts of Everyone wants money, she said. Especially someone with a notice to condemn on the table by the door. So she had seen the letter. I stepped closer, close enough that my body blocked the wind coming across the porch. I trade in labor, I said. You want the uplink? You help me prep the site for inspection. Paisley can take over the kitchen. You know structures. You help me brace the retaining wall. She blinked. I am an architect, Cillian. I design skyscrapers, not ditches. Gravity does not care about your degree, I said. The wall needs bracing. You help. I give you the uplink. Her jaw tightened. A stubborn light came into her eyes. Fine, she said. Give me a shovel. The next days blurred into a mix of mud, sweat, and strange quiet moments. Paisley took over my small kitchen. It turned out she could cook. She turned my basics into stews and cornbread and things that smelled like comfort. Outside it was different. Outside it was hard. Meline was not built for manual work, at least not at first. But she was stubborn. She tied her hair back, rolled up the sleeves of my flannel, and came out with me every morning. We worked the trench together. The mountain mud sucked at our boots, heavy and cold. She wobbled a few times, but never quit. At one point, she tried to lift a heavy cedar post into the trench on her own. Let me, I said, stepping in. I got it, she grunted, bracing and pushing. Her foot slipped. She stumbled forward, shoulder hitting my chest. I dropped my end of the post and grabbed her waist to steady her. For a second, we froze like that. Her breath hitched. There was a smear of mud on her cheek and dirt on the bridge of her nose. Up close, her eyes were not just dark. They were warm. You are stubborn, I said. I am competent, she shot back, but her voice was a little breathless. You are freezing, I added. Her hands were shaking. Not from fear this time. From cold. I stripped my heavy work gloves off and held them out. Put these on. Then you will have nothing, she said. My hands are used to it, I said. Yours are not. I pushed the gloves into her hands. They swallowed her fingers. She looked down at them, then back up at me. Why are you doing this, Cillian? She asked quietly. You could have let us sit inside and wait out the storm. You do not have to help this much. The wall needs to hold, I said, turning back to the trench. What I did not say was that I liked seeing her out here. I liked that she was willing to work, not just watch. That night the cabin felt different. We were all in the main room. Paisley was asleep on the couch, snoring lightly, a book open on her chest. The stove glowed hot. Snow tapped against the windows. Meline sat at the table with a pad of graph paper I had dug out of an old box. She sketched lines and angles with a mechanical pencil. I sat on the low bench, sharpening chisels on a stone. The soft scrape of metal on grit filled the space between us. You have a good eye, she said suddenly. I looked up. For what? I asked. For light, she said. For space. The way you place the cabin. Morning sun in the kitchen. Evening light on the future deck. Cross breeze through the main room. It is thoughtful. It is just logic, I said. It is not just logic, she said softly. It is care. Most people build to impress. You built this to protect. My hand stopped moving. The chisel sat still on the stone. Her words landed heavier than any board I had lifted this week. She stood and walked over to me. She picked up the chisel I had just finished, turning it carefully. My father was a carpenter, she said, before he drank himself out of it. Is that why you became an architect? I asked. To control the build? She gave a small, sad smile. Maybe to make sure the walls did not fall down, she said. She handed the chisel back. Her fingers brushed mine. Heat shot up my arm at that light touch. I almost pulled away, but I stayed still. The air felt thick. She looked toward the window and the dark outside. If my deadline is as important as I say it is, we should not gamble on a half-dead generator, she said. We should go test it. Now, I asked. Now, she said, while we have the strength. I grabbed my keys, a rag, and a flashlight. We pulled on jackets and stepped out into the cold. The wind snapped at our clothes, but the snow was lighter now, more like ash than bullets. The shed sat a short walk from the cabin, a dark shape against the trees. Inside, the generator waited, metal cold, pull cord coiled. Is this safe? She asked, voice low in the small space. It is mechanical, I said. I trust mechanical. I popped the side panel and started to work. Fuel line. Choke. Spark plug. Water in the bowl. It kept my hands busy and my mind quiet. Hold the light there, I said. She stepped close, shoulder almost brushing mine, flashlight steady on the open engine. No flinching. No drama. Just calm focus. Pull the cord when I tell you, I said. She nodded. Now. She pulled. The engine coughed and died. Again, I said. She braced her feet and pulled harder. I tweaked the choke, tapped the side with the back of my hand. The generator sputtered, then roared to life, loud in the small shed. The vibration ran up through the floor and through my boots. Meline's shoulders dropped as she let out a breath she had been holding since the storm started. We ran the cable back to the cabin and set the satellite dish on its stand, angling it toward the open sky between the trees. I tightened the clamps until it stopped shaking. It has to see the sky, I said. No trees. No excuses. When the lights on the uplink finally held steady, I stepped back. It is ready, I said. You can send your files. She did not move right away. She looked at the small dish, then at me. Thank you, Cillian, she said. I nodded, but I could feel it in my gut. Whatever she sent out into that sky tonight might bring the life she used to have back to her. And it might take her away from mine. Friday came fast. By then the wall was braced, ugly but strong. My whole body ached in that deep way that feels almost clean. Meline had sent her files through the uplink the night before. We had watched the progress bar crawl across the screen like it was dragging all her hopes behind it. 3 minutes to spare, she had said when the upload hit 100%. Now the sky was finally clear. Sunlight hit the wet ground and turned it into silver. The road still looked bad to me, but parts of it were starting to firm up. Paisley made a full pot of coffee to celebrate. The cabin smelled like beans and wood smoke and wet pine. I think you did it, I told Meline as I came in from checking the road. They have your work. You kept your job. She stood by the table, her phone in her hand. Her knuckles were white around it. He says the file will not open, she said. What? I asked. He says it is corrupt, she repeated. Her voice was flat, like she had been punched and was still catching up to the pain. She hit a button and put the call on speaker. Meline, a man's sharp voice snapped through the line. Her boss. I do not care what storm you are stuck in. I need you in the office today. With a hard set. Standing in front of the client when I call this meeting. The roads are washed out, she said. There have been mudslides. I can resend from the uplink with a new checksum. No, he cut in. I am not trusting a mountain internet story with a project of this size. If you are serious about being senior architect, you show up today. With drawings. If you cannot do that, we will find someone who takes this work seriously. She looked out the window while he talked. The canyon was still raw from the storm. Snow clung to the trees. The road I had walked that morning looked like a thin ribbon laid over soft ground. The road is washed out, she said again. I am not risking my life for a render. There was a pause. Then do not come back, he said. You want safety, stay safe. We need people who want the work. The line went dead. Paisley's face crumpled. She held her own phone like it was a hot coal. Maddie, I am so sorry, she blurted. When you were sending the file, I plugged my hair dryer into the same strip. There was a little spark, and the lights flickered, and I thought it was nothing and I should have told you. I am so stupid. Meline raised one hand, palm out, not angry, just stopping the flood. Her face was pale, but her eyes were clear. It does not matter, she said quietly. He heard storm and still chose profit. That tells me everything. She set her phone down on the table like it weighed more than the cedar beams outside. Before I could say anything, there was a heavy knock on the door frame. I turned. The door stood open. Councilman Rigg filled it, smug as always, with a man in a safety vest beside him holding a clipboard. "Morning, Thorne," Riggs said, smiling like a snake. Inspector's schedule opened up. "We're doing your audit now." His gaze slid past me to the inside of the cabin. 2 mugs on the counter. Suitcases by the wall. Meline and Paisley both standing there. "And I see you're running an unlicensed bed and breakfast," he added. "That is a zoning violation. I will be adding it to the list." The inspector walked past him to the window with the wall outside, already lifting his camera. "A safety incident here, and this whole site gets shut down," Rigg went on. He pointed through the glass at the temporary braces we had put up. "That timber is not code-graded. This is unsafe. I am issuing a stop work order." The room felt smaller. My hands curled into fists. "That timber is Douglas fir," Meline said. Her voice cut through as like a saw through soft wood. "Structural, grade 1. I checked the stamp myself." Rigg sneered. "And who are you, the maid?" I took a step forward, heat flashing through me. "You watch your mouth, Rigg." Meline's hand pressed against my chest, stopping me. She stepped in front of me, squaring her shoulders. "I am Meline Vance," she said. "Senior architect for Sterling and Associates. Under State Code 14B, emergency retaining structures are allowed for 30 days after a storm event. This brace meets the temporary requirements. I will be happy to sign an affidavit for the file." Rigg blinked. He had not expected that. "You're an architect," he said, like the word hurt him. "I am," she answered. "And I am ready to call the State Ethics Board if you continue to harass a private landowner without cause." Rigg looked at the inspector, looking for backup. The inspector shrugged. "She is right about the code," he said. "The wall is fine for temp bracing." Rigg's face turned red. He jabbed a finger at me instead. "Fine," he said. "But the bed and breakfast violation stands. You have guests. This is a commercial operation. That changes your zoning." "They are not guests," I said. "Then what are they?" he shot back. I felt Meline's eyes on me. I looked at her, then at Paisley, then back at him. "She is my partner," I said. "She lives here." I pointed at Paisley. "And she is family." The lie came out clean and solid. I did not know if it was a lie I wanted to take back. Rigg narrowed his eyes. "We will see," he said. "You have 1 week to prove residency or clear the site." He turned and walked out, taking his bad mood and the inspector with him. The door shut. The silence he left behind was louder than his voice. "Partner," Meline said softly. I turned toward her. There was something like a smile at the corner of her mouth. It did not reach her eyes yet, but it was there. "It was the only way to shut him down," I said. "I am not letting him use you as an excuse to take my land." Paisley sniffed and wiped her face with the back of her hand. "I am sorry," she said again. "If I had not used the hairdryer." "It is done," Meline said. She pulled her sister into a hug. "We cannot undo it. And I am not going to spend the rest of my life tied to a firm that would trade my life for a meeting." She let Paisley go and walked to the window. The wall stood outside, solid and plain. "You saved my land," I said to her back. "You gave me a place to sleep when I was scared of the dark," she answered, not turning around. I moved to stand beside her. The space between us was small now. I could feel the heat from her arm. "You can still go," I said. "Once the road is better." She looked at the road, then at me. "Paisley can go," she said. "She needs Wi-Fi and a hot shower. I will send her down to town. But I am staying." "For how long?" I asked. She held my eyes. "Until the audit passes," she said. "Until I decide what I want next. Until you tell me you are tired of me taking your floor." I let out a breath I had not realized I was holding. "I am not tired yet," I said. That night Paisley packed a bag. I drove her down the rough road in my truck, slow and careful, until we reached the first small town with a motel and a working cell tower. When I got back to the cabin, the sky was low again, clouds stacked deep over the ridge. Inside, it was just me and Meline. She stood in the middle of the room, hands shoved into the pockets of my flannel, looking both out of place and exactly right. For 3 days we had been strangers trying to survive a storm. Now we were something else. Still strangers, but tied together by lies, legal codes, and the way she had said, "we," without thinking. "We have 1 week," she said. 1 week, I repeated. Outside, the wind picked up again. Inside, the real storm was just starting. The second storm hit 2 nights later, worse than the first. Snow came in thick, heavy sheets. The wind shook the whole frame of the cabin. I could feel it in the loft floor like a slow, angry heartbeat. Meline and I were both awake, lying on opposite sides of the mattress, staring at the dark ceiling. "It is shifting," she said suddenly. I turned my head. I could just see her outline in the faint light from the stove below. "The wind load on the north gable," she said. "It is too high. It needs cross-bracing. If we do not add it, the frame could twist." "I do not have the timber inside," I said. "It is in the shed." She pushed the blanket back. "Then we go get it." I wanted to tell her no. I wanted to say we would be fine. But I trusted her eye as much as she trusted my hands. We dressed in layers. Jackets, hats, gloves. My heart pounded as we opened the door. The night was white and wild. Snow whipped across the porch. The world shrank to the circle of my flashlight. "Stay close," I said. We fought our way to the shed, heads down, boots sinking deep. The cold cut straight through everything. My fingers went numb. We grabbed 2 long 2x6 boards and turned back toward the cabin. The wind hit us full in the face. For a second, I lost sight of her. Then her shoulder bumped mine, and I found her again. As we stepped onto the porch, a gust ripped under a loose sheet of plywood I had stacked against the side of the house. It lifted like a sail and flew straight at us. "Down!" I yelled. I turned, moving on instinct. The edge of the plywood clipped my arm hard before it slammed into the rail and dropped to the floor. Pain tore up my left side. Hot and sharp. Meline dropped the board she was carrying. Snow sprayed around us. "You are bleeding," she said, her voice high. I looked down. My sleeve was dark and wet. The cut ran from my shoulder almost to my elbow. "I am fine," I said through my teeth. She grabbed my good arm. "Inside. Now." We stumbled in, dragging the brace boards after us. She kicked the door shut and forced me to sit on the bench by the stove. "First aid kit," she said, already moving. She found the box without asking where it was and came back fast. She cut my sleeve up the side with small sharp scissors, hands steady. The cut was deep. Not pretty. Blood ran down my arm and dripped onto the floor. "This will hurt," she said. "It already does," I answered. She cleaned the wound with antiseptic wipes. It burned like fire. I held my jaw tight and stared at the log in the stove, watching it crack and shift. She wrapped gauze around my arm, neat and tight, taping it off with a smooth line. She did not ask if I was okay. She just fixed it. "We still need to brace the wall," I said when she was done. "Sit down," she said. Her voice was firm. "You are bleeding." "I am sitting," I said, then pushed myself to my feet. The room tilted for a second. "Cillian," she warned. "Do not call me reckless," I said. "Call me useful." She stared at me for a moment, then let out a breath. "Fine," she said. "Then we do it right." We carried 1 brace board inside to the north wall and set it at an angle. I planted my feet wide and lifted the 2x6 with my good arm, pressing it against the main post. "Hold it," she said. "I do not move," I said. She stepped in close, drill in her hands, cheeks flushed from the cold. We were so near I could feel the heat of her body next to mine. She drove the first screw in, then the second, then the third. The board bit into place. The frame stopped its low groan. It felt like the whole cabin took a breath. She lowered the drill, breathing hard. "It is set," she said. "Yeah," I said. "It is." We stood facing each other, inches apart, both of us shaking from cold and adrenaline. Her hair was messy, curling around her face. There was a smear of my blood on her wrist. Her eyes searched mine, wide and bright. The line we had held for days finally snapped. I let the brace go, stepped forward, and lifted my good hand to her face. My fingers framed her jaw, thumb resting near her cheekbone. She did not pull away. She leaned into my touch. I kissed her. It was not gentle. It was not planned. It was rough and honest and full of everything we had been holding back. Fear, relief, anger, want. She inhaled sharply, then kissed me back with equal force, her hands gripping the front of my shirt, pulling me closer like she was afraid I would vanish. When I finally broke the kiss, I stayed close, my forehead against hers, breathing hard. "I am not letting you go," I said, my voice low. "Not for Rick. Not for your boss. Not for anyone. I do not want to go," she whispered back. The storm outside raged. Inside, for the first time, I did not feel alone. 2 days later, the sky turned clear and blue like nothing bad had ever happened. We woke in the loft, close, her head on my shoulder, our hands still linked under the quilt. For a moment, everything was simple. Then my phone buzzed on the crate near the bed. Signal was back. We both froze. "It is Paisley," I said, looking at the screen. "Answer," Meline said quietly. I put it on speaker. "Maddie." Paisley's voice came through, bright and breathless. "You are not going to believe this. I called Sterling and Associates. I told them about the storm and the power surge. The client refused to meet with anyone else. They said the project is yours or they walk. The firm wants you back. They are offering you a promotion. Senior partner. They want you in New York on Monday. They are sending a car." Silence filled the loft after she stopped talking. "Wow," I said finally. "Yeah," Paisley said. "So, big news. I will text the details. Love you." The call ended. Meline sat up slowly. She looked out the small loft window. The snow on the pines sparkled. My truck sat on the road, free again. The world below waited. "You should go," I said. The words felt like gravel in my throat. "It is what you wanted. A promotion. Recognition." She looked at me like I had just slapped her. "Is that what you think I want?" she asked. "I think you are an architect," I said. "You build towers. You do not brace cabins with a busted guy on a mountain." She pressed her lips together and stood. She dressed without arguing. That hurt more than if she had yelled. "Maybe you are right," she said. I drove her down to town in silence. The road was rough, but passable now. When we reached the motel lot where Paisley was waiting with her bags, I parked. Meline opened the door, then paused, one hand on the frame. "Goodbye, Cillian," she said. I kept my hands tight on the wheel so I would not reach for her. "Goodbye, Meline," I said. She got out. She did not look back as she walked toward the motel. I watched her until the door closed behind her. The next week felt like a month. I passed the inspection. The inspector signed off on the wall. Rig was furious, but Meline's affidavit was airtight. He could not touch the land. It should have felt like victory. Instead, the cabin was too quiet. The loft felt empty. Her coffee mug sat upside down by the sink, clean and dry, and every time I saw it, my chest hurt. One evening, I sat on the porch steps, watching the sun drop behind the far ridge. The air was cold. My arm ached in a dull way.
If this story stayed with your heart, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share with your friends.